Hi people, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This video is going to be a book review on the book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. This is what it looks like. Alright, so this book is by Mark Manson and it's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, a counterintuitive approach to living a good life. The reason I got this book is because I kept seeing people talk about it. I'd heard a lot of good reviews about it. I really wanted to just read the book myself and form my own opinion on the book irrespective of what other people said about the book. Just from the title alone, you can tell that this book is going to be quite straightforward and quite to the point. It outlines in 9 chapters how one can essentially try and live a good life. So I'll read you the titles of the chapters just so you can get an idea of what the book's about. So chapter 1 is called Don't Try. Chapter 2 is Happiness is a Problem. Chapter 3, You Are Not Special. You are not special. Chapter 4, The Value of Suffering. Chapter 5, You Are Always Choosing. Keyword, always choosing. Chapter 6, You're Wrong About Everything. Chapter 7, Failure is the way forward. Chapter 8, The Importance of Saying No. And chapter 9, And Then You Die. It is quite a short book. It is literally, I'll check how many pages it is, 204 pages long. It took me a little longer to read this book, but that's because I really was taking in the chapters, and throughout the book I've made markings and highlighted areas that I really found important and just parts that I feel like will really help me moving forward in my life, and parts that I'll also apply to my life. In such a short book, I feel like Mark Manson, the author of the book, covers so much. He covers so many different angles and perspectives and kind of molds it back into one. And what I like is that although he's talking about a different topic or a different subject, he always relates it back to previous chapters to make sure that you follow through with the book. I think for people that are around the age of 18 to 30, this book would be a great read for you just because of the millennial era. It's a very modern book based on like modern day technology, modern day issues that we're facing. I like how he uses really excellent and creative metaphors to get his point across. For example, there's something called the self-awareness onion. I'm not going to go into detail about it because I do want you guys to read the book. And there's something called the feedback loop from hell. There are many other metaphors that he uses throughout the book. Another one, was it called victimhood chic or something along those lines? I really like what he does. He has like a really good play on words which just help you understand his perspective and his point and what he's exactly trying to say to you. There's a nice use of like humor, and there is a lot of swearing, mainly at the beginning actually. The swear words start to kind of tone down throughout the book. At the start there's a lot of the word fuck. There is a lot of that, so if you don't like excessive swearing, I don't know how much you'll enjoy this book, just to put it out there. Also, if you're easily offended by things, this might be quite a tough read for you because he is quite to the point and blunt with it, and that's personally what I liked about the book. And one more other thing that I liked about the book is how he referenced times in history and also iconic figures in history. For example, he talks about the Beatles, he talks about Dabrowski's study, he references a BBC study, he uses factual times to kind of relate it to now. And what's nice about that, it's not just his opinion and him being like what I say goes. He references things that back up his points, as well as using moments in his own life where times were hard, where he learned his biggest lessons. So I'm gonna pick out a few of my favorite parts slash quotes in the book that I highlighted. So I'm gonna start with the imaginary superhero that Mark creates. It's called the Disappointment Panda, and he basically describes this imaginary superhero that if he could invent, he would. And he walks around and he tells everybody the harsh truths. Up until now, I literally have this like imaginary panda in my head at times that I call the Disappointment Panda. And I'll sit and I'll think, what would the Disappointment Panda say to me now? So one of my first quotes is in the chapter Happiness is a Problem. These quotes are more or less in the order of the book. So this is probably one of the early chapters. We suffer for the simple reason that suffering is biologically useful. It is nature's preferred agent for inspiring change. I really like this quote because in the chapter he outlines how suffering is inevitable and we all suffer to some degree. Of course, some people suffer more than others, but essentially we all suffer and we cannot escape it. Emotions are merely signposts, suggestions that our neurobiology gives us, not commandments. Therefore, we shouldn't always trust our emotions. In fact, I believe we should make a habit of questioning them. I really like that. As someone that is quite emotional, I'm very emotional. I cry a lot. I also tend to act out of emotion, which I know is not a good thing to do, and I'm learning to change that. Emotions come and go. Another quote that I liked is in the chapter "You Are Not Special," and it goes, "This flood of extreme information has conditioned us to believe that exceptional is the new normal." And how I take that is that he's saying we have become so used to seeing the highs of everyone's lives, the achievements, the highest, most polished points in everyone's lives, that we feel like exceptional is the normal. We're no longer satisfied by the simple things in life. We always feel like we need to be right at the top, and if we're not at the top, we've just failed. Just little things like reading a good book, going to the park with your sister, eating dinner around the family table. Those really simple yet intimate and special moments, we no longer value them. This quote's from the same chapter. It goes, "The problem is that the pervasiveness of technology and mass marketing is screwing a lot of people's expectations for themselves." This next quote is from the chapter "You Are Always Choosing." "The biggest problem with victimhood chic is that it sucks attention from the actual victims. It's like the boy who cries wolf." So this chapter is quite a harsh one to read. If you're someone that's been through a lot in your life, it might be tough because he is really blunt. He is saying that we are in control of how we react to everything that occurs in our lives. And he makes a clear distinction between responsibility and fault. We often confuse the both. Yes, it's not your fault that it happened, but it's now your responsibility how you deal with it. And he makes that very clear with everything that happens in our lives, from the smallest things to the really tough and heartbreaking moments in our lives. We choose exactly how to respond to those. But we always control how we interpret what happens to us as well as how we respond. So that's another point. He says that we control how we respond to it, but also how we interpret the matter, the situation, whatever it is. We are always in the process of approaching truth and perfection without actually ever reaching truth or perfection. And in a nutshell, I take that as we can always try and strive for the best for ourselves and the best for our lives, but we'll never ever get to being perfect, because that is completely impossible. Perfection doesn't actually exist. So as long as you're trying and you're learning and you're improving, that is the best you can actually be. You can't actually be the best because there will always be room for improvement. So that's how I take that chapter. Accept it. You will never ever be perfect at anything. Quite simple. You won't. Take the pill and swallow it. Swallow it. So my next favorite quote was from the chapter "The Importance of Saying No." This is why it became the norm in Western cultures to smile and say polite things even when you don't feel like it, to tell little white lies and agree with someone whom you don't actually agree with. This is why people learn to pretend to be friends with people they don't actually like, to buy things they don't actually want. The economic system promotes such deception. I like this chapter a lot, and this is where Mark himself actually explains a part in his own life where he took a trip over to, where was it? To Russia. He found that people were really blunt and they said the truth at all times, and when he first got there, he thought that it was quite rude. He was used to people just being really nice all the time. You know, that sorry culture in London. Sorry. I mean, I do it myself. Now coming to the end of the book, we get to the final chapter, chapter 9, and the chapter is called "And Then You Die." it made me cry. This chapter did make me cry. Mark talks about something traumatic that happens in his own life and then speaks on death. And this part where he says, death scares us, and because it scares us, we avoid thinking about it, talking about it, sometimes even acknowledging it, even when it happens to someone close to us. Death is the light by which the shadow of all life's meaning is measured. Without death, everything will feel inconsequential, all experience arbitrary, all metrics and values suddenly zero. We know we're gonna die, and that is almost what makes us want to live our life to the fullest. It's sad, but when someone close to us dies, usually if we're able to get through it in a healthy way, it becomes a really, you know, transformational, as he said, moment in our lives where we learn to love more, live more, appreciate more. But it shouldn't take that at the end of the day. But at the same time, that is what death does. Death makes you wake up. It makes you understand that life is fragile. We're not gonna live forever. So I'm gonna end with the last few lines that I really liked in this book, and it's in reference to modern day culture. So the pampering of the modern mind has resulted in a population that feels deserving of something without earning that something. A population that feels they have the right to something without sacrificing for it. People declare themselves experts, entrepreneurs, inventors, innovators, mavericks and coaches without any real life experience. He's coming for your next. Our culture today confuses great attention and great success, assuming them to be the same thing. Mark, who was you adding? Spill the tea. So I just read out a few of my favorite parts of the book, a few of my favorite quotes. I have so many more, but those were just a few that I thought I'd include in this video. This book really was a great read. With anything and with any book, I take most things with a pinch of salt or a little bit more. But I don't think anyone should take any single thing as like Bible and live their whole life by it, because I feel like life is a lot more complex than that, and we read a range of books to gain knowledge from different perspectives and then make it make sense in our own heads and then apply it to different aspects of our lives in ways that we want to. I don't think every quote in there may apply or resonate with every person. Those quotes resonate with me, and there are things in that book and quotes in that book that I will apply to my life, but you may feel different. You may not agree, or you may pick other quotes in the book that you like, and you may not like the book at all. I've kind of given you guys an outline of the book. I've picked out some of my favorite quotes so you can actually see what he's talking about. The titles of the chapters I mentioned as well. So if this book sounds like a bit of you, I would definitely recommend it. Before I read it, it sounded like a bit of me. It sounded like the book I needed in my life and a book that I'd like to read, and it was. So thank you to Mark Manson for creating this book. Would I recommend it? Yes, I would. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and comment below if you would like to see more book reviews. Please subscribe, because I'm really close to my subscriber goal for the month. Until then, stay blessed and stay beautiful.